maybe we should be allowed to pull people out of their car and slap the shit out of them.
Well, I mean, and the problem is you don't want communities having to take matters into their own hands.
I mean, to go along with what you're saying, I mean, I was a fucking terror.
Yeah.
Like, I should be in jail in some states. If there's 400 churches in Lynchburg, it means there's a lot of religious people walking these streets. You think it's working?
Based on people's behaviors and what we observe and the expectation of what society places on how a religious person should act, no. Because you would say, okay, if religious people are supposed to act a certain way, and then you see how people behave in any city, and you say there's 400 churches, everybody should be acting wonderful. Not
only should they be acting wonderful, but we shouldn't have any societal issues.
Correct.
Because everybody could take a little chunk of the town.
Correct.
And just make sure everybody's good.
That's right. A plus B should equal C, right? And we're not seeing C at all.
Why do you think that is? Like, that's one of the most interesting things to me is like, and maybe so just because I moved to Lynchburg, is like, I feel like it's hyper religious compared to anywhere else I've lived, where it's like, I mean, when I was here for the first like week or two, I was getting recruited to churches like I was like an NBA draft or something. So it was like, that kind of made me think about it. And then, the longer I stay here and the more I'm around some of these people, it's like, this doesn't seem to be working at all. Right. Like,
which
it's
is
good
really
in theory, like it's a great idea. And I think if most people were really as Christian as they'd like to say they are, I mean, have you ever been on Living in Lynchburg in the comment section? I mean, I would argue that most of the people that are in that group are Christian or would claim to be Christian, but they're the nastiest. They talk so much shit. Like, for example, right now in my life, what's gotten me very passionate is people who blatantly speed through our neighborhood because they're trying to go from Link to Boonesboro or Boonesboro to Link to miss a light that's on the corner right there. And they fly. And I'm talking like 50 miles an hour in a 25. We have no sidewalks in our neighborhood. We're all out walking our dogs. Kids are playing in the street. Like, this is our neighborhood. This is our home, right? And it just so happens that there's a shortcut. And so I put on there like, hey, if you're coming through here, please. Yeah. We play in the streets. We walk our dogs. We don't have sidewalks. Just give us the common courtesy and just go around. And first off, it had to be edited because what I really put the first time, they wouldn't allow in there because of the rules, which is hilarious. So I edited it and put it back in, and immediately people are like, speed limits were put in place by the government to collect tax dollars and da-da-da-da-da. And are your kids really not smart enough to not play in the streets? And it's like, shut the fuck up. Right. I just was yeah, I know. And this wasn't even meant to be a conversation. This was more like, hey, if you're coming through our neighborhood, slow down. We'd appreciate it.
Well, and I think, you make an excellent point, and it actually really makes me sad because what you're saying is true, is Jesus says, just love each other, be kind.
Yeah.
He was the only, in our belief system, he was the only perfect person that ever lived. And so the rest of us are imperfect people. So we're supposed to show grace to everybody else because we're all imperfect. Translation, we all suck. I suck, you suck, everybody suck. We all suck. We're all as sucky as the next person in common ways and in different ways. Your journey of suckiness may be different than my journey of suckiness. Rather than showing grace like, yeah, we've all been through stuff. Let's just be kind to each other. It's like, let's try to act like we don't suck and make you feel like you super suck. And I'm going to judge you on whatever, right? And Christians can be the worst, which is why we have sometimes the worst reputation to people that are non-believers or have left the faith or struggle or confused because we act self-righteous, like we don't suck, like we haven't walked through, or we're too, we don't admit where we've fallen short. I'm not a perfect wife. I'm not a perfect mom. I, lost my temper. I get road rage like the rest of them. I call it losing my Jesus. I'm just like a normal person. Like, I'm not perfect. I don't always use the best language. I get frustrated. I just have normal feelings and emotions. Like, there's no perfect thing. There's no perfect person. I walk into church and, Dale and I can be frustrated with each other and have had arguments, and, our kids are normal moron kids. You know what I mean? Like, we've had struggle with our children. They've made mistakes. My parents divorced, Dale's parents divorced. Like, we've had all the things, I have a sister that's an alcoholic that went to prison. Dale's had things in his family. Like, we've had all those circumstances, imperfections, and but that's every family does, And I think there's a lot of people in Christian homes that hide that and don't admit those things, and make people who do have those issues and challenges feel like judged if they admit that, And
why do you think we're so sensitive about that? Like, if someone calls us out on our shit, which is one of the things, that's one of the reasons I am who I am today.
Yeah.
To go along with what you're saying, yeah. I was a fucking terror.
Yeah.
Like, I should be in jail in some states, but because of my charm or my ability to get a good lawyer, the foresight to do that, to have enough money to pay for said lawyer, right. To have a military background. Like, there's always been something that saved me from going down one route or the other. And it took people to call me out of my bullshit, and for me to lose my ego, dissolve that ego, right. For me to get out of my own way to realize that I could do this whole thing differently. How do we get people to dissolve their ego and make them realize that it's more about the collective than themselves?
I don't know. It's pride. You're right. I don't know. And it's sad because the ability to love and show grace to people and meet them where they are and accept has such a greater impact than when we judge and make people feel less than for, like you said. Do you know how many people in a church probably have the same exact, wouldn't admit it, but probably have done things that they should be in jail for as well, and just would never tell you? How many people, bought alcohol underage, have drunk and drive, whatever the word would be, have done things they shouldn't have done, shoplifted, didn't get caught, infidelity, all kinds of stuff, that just don't get caught, are doing things that they shouldn't be doing and haven't gotten caught, but they're sitting in church on Sunday. But they would judge you if they heard your story because maybe you're not at church on Sunday, but they're doing the same things. Like, what I'm saying. So everybody has their stuff in their past, in their present, which is why we're not supposed to judge each other, and we're supposed to not hold each other higher or lower because we all have it. And you got to be honest, and people just aren't honest. I think I try to be as honest as possible, with my struggles, with whatever I'm going through or what I've come from. I've gone to the jails. I used to be involved in the jail ministry. I'd go on Friday nights to a local jail in Alabama. And when I first went in, I was like, I've never been in a jail in my whole entire life, except for one time to bail out my sorority sister. And otherwise, I'd never been in one. And I was like, I'm really not sure what I'm going to say to these ladies, because they're not going to see, how am I going to relate to them? And, but I knew that, I was like, I got to do something because I want to make sure that they feel cared about. And so I'd go every Friday night, and eventually it was like, I just started talking about the things in my life I'd been through, and, that I'd been a single mom. I'd walked through that journey. I'd been, just kind of relatable things of the mistakes I had made as well, as a young person, And at some point, it was like they stopped seeing me as like this goody two shoes from the church, and just saw me as a girl that was like, yeah, I've done stupid crap too, and maybe didn't get caught for it, or maybe not to this extent, but like, I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to just like pray with you, love on you, and try to maybe give you some direction on, if you get out, like, here's some ways we can help you redirect your life when that happens. And then I had girls like writing me and calling me and updating me after they got out. You know, some girls would get out and get back in. But anyway, it was me just letting them know I wasn't there to try to make them feel bad about their choices. And that was where that was helpful. And so I've tried to be like that with everybody, not just people that are incarcerated, but, you know. So to your original question, like, you know, to have 400 churches and then see the behaviors that we see here, like you said, with so many people that probably claim themselves to be Christian, it is disappointing, you know, because we're failing.
I'm a problem solver by nature. It's like, how do we change the culture? How do we shift it? How do we get people to care? Like, and sometimes I feel like, especially lately, that they need to be called out on their shit or slapped up. Like, I feel like we've made the borders around people, there's too much cushion. Like, people need to be reminded that we're still in like the jungle. Like, there's shit can happen. Like the other day, to my point earlier, which is one of the reasons why I'm so riled up, is I was walking my dog down the road that didn't have sidewalks, and I see this Jeep come around the corner and he's flying, like he's doing 50. So I take a step into the middle of the road to like let him know, like, hey, slow down. Yeah. Not only did he not slow down, but he sped up and like got so close to me that, I mean, stupidly, anything could have happened. He could have run me over and I'd have been dead. But I was so furious to stand my ground, and I had a tennis ball in my hand, and I chucked it at his window as hard as I could, and it bounced off of it, and he slammed on his brakes, and he rolls his window down, and he's like looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And he backs his car up, and he starts like acting like he's gonna get tough, and he goes to, like, he's gonna open the door. And I was like, look, bud, I was like, if you get out of that car, you're not gonna get wherever you're going. I was like, so if you are in that big of a hurry, I was like, you better go and don't fucking come down this road again. And had he got out of the car, I don't know that I could have not stopped myself from just breaking his face against the concrete. Wow. Like, that's an imminent threat as far as I'm concerned. Like, that's like, I mean, that's like you coming through my neighborhood with a gun, with your finger on the trigger and just pointing it around and like playing with my life. I take it the same way. Right. And I don't know, it's just, you don't have a speeding problem here, right? You live on a cul-de-sac. It's pretty...
Yeah, our cul-de-sac, no. But I mean, people do drive fast on that first main street, or the main, but yes.
So to prevent myself from having an altercation and inevitably being judged by a jury of my peers, I guess this is also video evidence of me saying, like, first of all, you know, I'm not crazy, and that I do take it that big of a threat. Like, that's why I'm going to go from 0 to 100 if the altercation begins. But what would your advice be to me? If someone was speeding through your neighborhood, what steps would you take? Well,
so you're in what street are you on?
I'm on Royal Boulevard.
Okay,
that connects to Parkland.
Right. Have you reported it to, I mean, have you called the police? I mean, people have reported.
Here's what I know about the police, because I ride along with a couple of the guys quite often. They're understaffed. Right. They don't have time to be coming in.
Well, I'm wondering, like, because the city, I mean, like speed bumps. Do you have the signs that say like the speed limit signs that like flash the speed limit should say, or anything over there?
It says as soon as you take that left onto Royal, it says neighborhood, 25 miles per hour. That's it, and that's the only posted speed limit on that whole
So if I was able to put together like a neighborhood meeting over on like of your neighbors to get like all of them together with like one of our city representatives to talk about that problem, would that be helpful?
Yeah.
To get them, like they would all be like, absolutely, this is ridiculous.
Oh, so trust me, I already know. Like my neighbors cheer me on. I'm the neighborhood watch now.
Okay.
Like I'm patrolling the streets. I'm standing in the middle of the street. I'm telling people to slow down. I'm posting on Living in Lynchburg. Like they're all in agreement that.
So that's what I would do. I would say maybe that's what we do is we get together a meeting and I get one of our city manager, like the assistant city manager that would be over that in the meeting with us. And then we advocate for speed bumps, maybe to the city to put some speed bumps over there because that would be a deterrent, like if you put some big ones, because that's going to mess cars up. Because we know speed limit signs people ignore, obviously. I know that the vice mayor had some speed limit signs put over off of Enterprise Drive that do like the flashing that says like, you're going and it tells you like your actual speed. Helps a little bit, but still people are speeding. So I think speed bumps are maybe more of a deterrent, because you're going to go flying over them.
I know my neighbors wouldn't like speed bumps because they don't want to mess up their cars. Because I would argue, not my direct neighbors, but there's a lot of people that live in that neighborhood that are the ones speeding. So they don't want speed bumps.
Well,
right?
Yeah. So do you want people speeding or not?
I don't give a shit. I want speed bumps. I'll drive my 88 Ford over those things all day long. Right. Like I started parking both of our cars in the street, so that way it was like a funnel.
Right.
They have to slow down.
Right.
And I can see them look at my house, and they're just cursing me out. Yeah. And I love it. It makes me so
because
happy.
it's a public safety issue. So it's like, okay, what we don't want to happen is you to have an altercation and then it put you at risk, or like if that guy had gotten out and then, because here, like as you're describing it, so he sped up and got close to you. So really, like in a situation with the police, you could have argued, well, you felt threatened for your life, so you threw the tennis ball.
Oh yeah, no, I'm confident that if I was judged, hopefully, I mean, I'd like to, but anyway, I'm confident that
you felt he was coming for you, right?
Yes.
And then he got out, and then whatever. So we don't want those things happening.
Right.
And so it's like, so what are the options are? What's the next thing we could do?
But to my point originally, I'm saying, but maybe we do.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to, and it will never happen, obviously.
Right.
But maybe we should be allowed to pull people out of their car and slap the shit out of them.
Well, I mean, and the problem is you don't want communities having to take matters into their own hands. Like we don't want our citizens to feel that we're at that place. Like that's not a good place for you to feel. And I think it's ridiculous, to your point, that you get on a Living in Lynchburg page with a valid concern for safety, and then people are on your butt about it. And that's just so frustrating to me, is a lot of the times things that you try to do that are for the good, people will just turn it into something else and in a heartbeat.
Well, I have a theory that if people were healthier, they'd be happier. From somebody who knows nothing about politics, who just turns that on and starts watching you guys, it would seem that nothing's getting done and that no one really knows what's going on. It seems very disorganized. And I'm not saying any of this to be rude. It's just in the spirit of being like honest. I turn it on sometimes and I'm like, what is going on? Like, I don't think that I'm that smart. But then when I start looking at things and being like, well, this doesn't make any sense. What does that mean? And to be fair, like I like to bounce my ideas and how I feel off the community. I talk to everybody, like in the sauna, in my neighborhood, wherever I go. Yeah. And the feelings are pretty mutual. Yeah. Like everyone's looking up at the council like, what the fuck's going on? Yeah.
Well, so the reality is things are getting done. I mean, we're voting on things and that are good for the city. And I mean, we've gotten things accomplished that are good and beneficial. But there is a definite kind of spirit of confusion up there because of personalities. And so a lot of talking and arguing that's so unnecessary. that just makes people like that are watching just go like, what's happening here? You know, it's kind of arguing for argument's sake that doesn't really change the outcome of a vote anyway. You know, typically when something that we're voting on comes up, there's already, you know, council members kind of already know which way they're going to go anyway, because we kind of know how we feel about something. And so, but you'll have these personalities that just need to say how they feel about something, let their voices be known, whether it really is pertinent to the issue or not, and can be divisive in nature. A lot of times it's to kind of throw shade at another person, again, which is not beneficial.
Yeah.
Doesn't change the
Goes back to
outcome.
everything we were talking
Correct. Does not benefit the city or the citizens, does not benefit the outcome of the vote, and just adds to a negative tone that is received by the city. So, and it takes away from the accomplishments that we actually are making, because people, what they retain is the poop show that they're witnessing versus that, hey, we actually did just accomplish, like, hey, we just put money into a new community center that's going to be great for a certain section of the city that's going to be able to benefit X, Y, and Z, you know, and let's celebrate that. That just got totally railroaded and not celebrated because of this argument that took place. Mm-hmm. You know, so that's frustrating to me, because we're getting good things done, but they get missed because of the ridiculous childish behavior of certain council members. And a lot of it goes back to, really originates that me being mayor was not what certain people wanted. That was the origin a lot of the angst. And we've kind of been paying for it since then, and which is ridiculous, because that doesn't benefit the citizens. So, you know, get over it, and don't hold that against everybody else on council and the entire city, and let that play out, you know, on council every single meeting that we have. 99.9% of your local government is not political. It's not. We're not talking national and state level issues. You're talking about your own people. It's your own neighborhoods. It's your own families. It's your local tax dollars at work. It's your own businesses. It's your own schools. It's your own potholes. It's all your own stuff. So when you have people at the local level that are like trying to make things about national and state level issues, you're really kind of igniting a fire that shouldn't happen. The only time you're really going to see party politics at play at the local level is really when you're dealing like with some fiscal issues, and maybe in the schools, because that's when you're seeing politics really now, is really in schools, you know, where you have to make a decision at the school boards, which we have done. But otherwise, it's really citizen focused. And, you know, there's been a lot of division in our council that hasn't been necessary. And it's really just perspective of like how you feel about certain things in the neighborhoods that has nothing to do with politics. So I just think there's been a lot of division that has just made us look so bad, and it's been so unnecessary, and it's all based on perspective. You're going to have a different perspective on something that let's just say we're both conservatives. We're both, you know, from veteran families. You served, my husband served. So we're going to have similar views on a lot of things, but you might have a different way that you would go about doing something.
Most things. I would probably go about differently.
Right. But maybe our view on it's the same, but you would go about doing it differently. But I probably wouldn't like hate on you for that. Right. And so maybe you wouldn't hate on me for how I would get there, as long as we get there. And I think that that's fine. I think we can both have the same goal and get there a completely different way.
So another example I'll bring up, the vice mayor put something on the agenda at the last minute, it seemed like, according to other people. And, you know, something that he was very passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy who was against it had a valid point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, shit happens. Not everybody gets to do what they want to do.
Right.
Why do we do this for them and not every single other person that's going to come and ask for it after this point?
Right.
Why do it that way?
Right.
Why not just let these kids either figure out what 400 churches to go to get their money, or how to get it through, you know, whatever, be
Right.
creative, or
Right.
you don't get it,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And don't get me wrong, I see the other side too. It's like if a school and a class and a group has come together so well that they're getting asked to go do something to represent Lynchburg on a level that maybe not everybody else gets to do, then this is why we're doing it.
Right.
But have that be explained, have their point be valid, because it is. What he said, a lot of people they'll be saying too. But then when you guys are fighting about it up there, it just looks like the answer is to fight
Right.
instead of, we're going to show you on this level, on this dais, how we,
Why it's justified.
and not only why it's justified, but how we got to that decision.
Right.
And why we're going to do it this way.
Right.
And we're not going to do it for everybody else that comes. Like, maybe you have to get to a certain level, and we'll figure out what all that means later. But right now, they have an opportunity to go do this, and we're going to give them money because we have it.
Right.
But this doesn't mean that everybody else is going to get this
Right.
chance.
Well, and I think that's a good point. So we have to vote on that again, because that was just the first vote. In order to appropriate money, we have to do 2 votes. So we're going to vote on that again on the 13th, and that was my plan, because I actually agreed with Jeff's point that we do run the risk of other groups coming now and asking. So you're right. I kind of was stuck in the middle of like, oh gosh, you know, like I saw where Chris was. I agreed with points on both sides of that, and I thought, so I think you're right. It needs to be explained that here's what sets this apart, and in order for these parameters to be met, so that not everybody comes now, because we do run that risk, and we run the risk of people going like, wait, did you favor this group over us? And now we do have to make it very clear. So we don't put ourselves in that situation. So that was my plan, is, you know, to make sure that we differentiate and explain it very well as to why it was supported, so that it is explained. Because you're right. I mean, all of the fighting, and I try to articulate as best I can, because I'm the last person to speak before the vote is called. I try my best to say things, but when there's so much fighting, a lot of times it's like, as you see, it's just like kind of out of control, and it's like just trying to get to the vote sometimes is my goal, because it's like trying to get people to calm down.
Is it rude to say that someone might be too sensitive for a position? Like, in my opinion, the vice mayor seems like he takes things that people say to heart, to the point where he lets it really bruise his ego. And I feel like if he was not so sensitive, maybe we could figure out.
Well, I mean, you know, you're dealing with politicians here, right? And so, and I've told you before, and I'll say it until I'm not in this role anymore, I'm not a politician. So like the whole, like watching the political game thing happen, I'm just like, I don't take part in it. It's not my game. So I think there's a lot of politicians, you know, on every side of me. And so I think there's a lot of politicking happening. There's a lot of personalities, you know, and so I think, you know, I'll leave it there, but I think there's multiple personalities happening.
I wasn't trying to get you to, I guess I just wanted to say he's too sensitive, or I think he's too sensitive.
Yeah.
Because.
But you do have 2 personalities that are doing everything they can to get him to react to. Like they know what they're doing.
But, which is even more reason why he should like not be so sensitive, because they're just pushing his buttons.
Right, I know.
So that doesn't look good as somebody who understands, you know, warfare and tactics and politics to an extent. If I see you reacting to every time they poke you, you're probably not the best leader.
No, I know. And unfortunately, you're dealing with a 29-year-old who's still learning those things. And so that's, you know, you try to mentor and...
So how does a 29-year-old get into the role of vice mayor when, you know, there's people obviously that don't like him on the board or council? Like, how does someone get there? Is it just straight politicking? Like,
I mean, that's just, he just got voted in. I mean, and so, I mean, and he's actually very, very smart. I mean, he knows the rules of procedure very well. He's been super helpful with me.
You can tell all of those things.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's been helpful with that. And for that, he's actually been great in that role. I mean, if he wasn't right there with me, because I didn't know any of the things coming in,
well,
as you know.
That's another thing, and that's one of the reasons I brought it up, is because someone like me who looks at him and doesn't, like, I get that he knows the details, but even that too, like him always whispering like how things kind of work a little bit. It undermines you a little bit just visually, right? Like, why doesn't she know how this stuff works? And I get it. Like, if I was in there, I would probably not know shit either, and it would take me a while.
Right.
But I would be on the backside, like learning, so that way when we go out there and present ourselves to the public, it doesn't look like I got this guy in my ear telling me how to do everything.
Right.
When we look at him, like, I wouldn't want him in charge of me.
Right. Well, and sometimes it's like there's so many, like, we've had so many bizarre things happen that, like, there's trickery happening that even if you and I knew, like, the basic rules of procedure, I wouldn't even, you'd have to, like, study this stuff and, like, know all, like, it's so bizarre with some of the stuff that's happened.
That's why you have a lawyer at the end that's always like, hey.
Yes. Yeah. So it just so happens that Chris happens to just be really, really smart in that area. Like, I don't think normal mayors would know some of the stuff that he even knows. It's just that he is kind of like a nerd in that area. Most mayors would have to say point of order and ask the parliamentarian. So it just so happens that Chris knows that. Otherwise, I would have had to have been like this, not because I'm not, really in lack of experience wouldn't even be the reason. It's just because there's been some weird stuff that he happens to know. There's been some stuff that he knows that even, like, I've had to double check with Matt that Matt didn't even know, because it's like, it's been so bizarre because it's trickery, you know? And, so, but I understand it's like, and sometimes he'll be saying things. It's not even about, like, that what I don't know. It's a question that he has, or it's something that we're talking about on the agenda. But I can understand from appearance sake.
It's just visuals.
It looks like
I'm watching a show.
Yeah,
essentially.
Yeah. So, I mean, and everybody's got their opinions of everybody, you know. And so what I'm trying to do. The hardest job I have right now is trying to unify, because you've got like I said, the personalities that people have that everybody's kind of watching and they're criticizing, and I'm trying to sit up there and do the best job I can running the meeting, but also listening to all the citizens fairly and objectively considering everything that's coming before us, trying to be logical in making a decision with the monies, if it's a money decision, or whoever's coming before us with whatever the decision is. You know, it's a lot to consider. And I'm just trying to do the best I can, you know, especially in a city that I've only been in for a short time, and with all these people that I really care about, you know, and you know, I mean, I've been all over the city, and I have so many people that I truly do care about. I mean, I care about our veterans, I care about our children in our schools, I care about those who are less fortunate. I mean, I care about everybody, and so I really do want to listen, and I don't want to just make these, like, black and white decisions without really hearing.
I do too, and as someone who just moved to Lynchburg, I mean, I love it. It's home, and I think Lynchburg has an opportunity to be the example. We got all the ingredients for it. We just got to come together and do it, because especially right now, like, the world, for better or worse, we're kind of always on the brink of a war. I mean, if you know anything about history going back, we've constantly been at war. I participated in one. A lot of the people that you know and we love participated in one. It's going to happen again. And what's our contingency when it comes to Lynchburg? What are we doing right now to prep for some of these things? Because I'm telling you right now, if the power goes out in the grid, or some shit happens, which they're all expecting to happen within the next however many years, what the fuck is everybody gonna do? I know what I'm gonna do, and I'll be fine. But it'd be way cooler if we could come together and figure some of this shit out, so that way when it happens, we're better off for it. Like, do we have any contingency for something like that? What I just said? Like, let's say power grid goes out right now. We don't know when it's coming back on. What do we do?
I mean, I know that there's like emergency plans. I can't say that I've seen what that looks like, but I do know that there are emergency plans for if something terrible happened. The city has something in place, but I don't know exactly like the steps of that and what all.
Can we figure that out? Can I be the spokesperson for it? Can we start talking about
Let
it?
me look into it. Yeah. Let me ask. I'll talk with our city manager and find out what that all looks like.
Because I think even just getting people to understand that it's a possibility.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
here's what we're going to do when it happens. Just having that in the back of their mind might make them a less shitty person.
Where to go, what to do. Yeah. I think that's a fair conversation.
Also, what could we do to get a meeting with a handful of people from the community? Every corner of it.
Okay.
I'm talking like me, active gang member, lawyer, like all walks of life, to come into a room every once in a while. No phones, no cameras, no
Okay.
nothing. Everybody, like, we just sit down and we talk with no filters
Okay.
about what's going on in our community.
Oh, that wouldn't be hard.
That wouldn't be hard? Because I feel like
Well, I mean, like a gang member.
I'm trying to schedule my next podcast is to be with an active gang member here in Lynchburg.
Have you met one?
I have a contact we're trying to figure out like who would be the best conversation.
Who's your contact?
I have a guy that I met at a gym. He's connected in the streets.
Okay, I do know someone that I'm working with in my coalition that that is a former one here that has people on the inside that I can talk to you about, because that'd be good. Yeah. So, the biggest thing that with that is just getting someone that will trust you. That knows that doesn't think that you're up to no good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it only takes talking to me for about 10 minutes to figure that out.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I genuinely care about this city, like, so much.
Right.
I mean, let's be honest. If I wanted to right now, I could move to Thailand, where I've already lived, and I wouldn't have to deal with any bullshit. I can let everybody fight amongst themselves, but I care. I genuinely care about this community and the veterans in it.
Yep.
And I think that. I genuinely think Lynchburg can be the example of what it looks like when a community comes together and really gets shit done.
Yeah, I agree.
And if I don't see that happening in the next couple of years, I'll go.
Yeah.
But while I'm here, it would be awesome.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I wanted to get in a room with a couple of the gang members too, because I want to hear from them. Like, we're really making efforts. I talk, the coalition that I formed, I talk about saving lives, and I'm like, I'm not being dramatic. Like, serious. Like, we're trying to save lives from the 6-year-old that was killed last May, because I'm, in touch with his family, and I'm loving on his mom and his his older sisters that are 8 and 11. But I'm also trying to save the lives of those who killed him. Like, figuratively, because we haven't caught them yet, but I'm trying to save. How did those guys become those guys? I'm trying to save them from becoming those boys.
I think that I honestly think that is so simple, and I think one of the reasons why I would have a good conversation is because I can relate. I mean, I was a lost youth that joined a gang too. I just happened to be funded by the United States. I mean, they just chose the wrong gang.
Right.
That's it.
Right. And that's it. And that's
most young men have a violence inside them that has to be, forged in some type of militant group, tribe. Like we all have a war to fight. That is most men.
Right.
And they're just, lost and confused and fighting a war that doesn't necessarily have to happen.
Right. I mean, and I know a lot of that. I mean, we've had enough discussions in our group about that. It's, I want to talk to them. I want to hear from their hearts, what they'll share, what they're willing to. I mean, I know that they're so rough and tough, and there's wounds and they're hurt down deep, and I get it. But how do we help, how can we help them? Because there's so many of them. There's fatherlessness issues. There's so much going on. They're raising themselves. They've given up on themselves. They want to feel included. They want to feel power. They want to feel, and there's so much of that. But so yeah, I would love to get you talking to them because they need mentors. There's so many of them that have dropped out. They're over at the alternative school. I'm trying to get on over there to help them because, statistically speaking, they'll either be dead or incarcerated, by age 24. And as a mother of 4 sons, who have been blessed to have 2 parents who love them and have all the things that statistically give them opportunity for a great future, all these young men, I want them to have opportunity too. And I feel like I'm fighting for their lives. Like I really am. And I want the best for them. And I just think how can we do it? If we can change, just one life is great, but I believe we can change so many, but we need everybody, like all hands.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm down. And I hope that, some of the things I suggested you actually take into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do. And I'd love to be a part of any of those conversations,
Sure.
any of those groups,
Yeah.
any of the tough conversations.
Yeah.
I don't want to go somewhere where I have to be worried about, my language or people being offended. Or,
oh, well, sure. Yeah. Yep.
I think we can have some real honest conversation and get some stuff done.
No,
But
I think it's great.
I appreciate you taking
Thank
time
you.
to sit down and talk with me.
Of course.
This was good.
Thank you for
Productive.
Yeah. Thanks for the follow-up a year later.
Yeah.
Yeah.